Hello everyone. My name is Adair and I am the Executive Director of NJASCD. It's a pleasure to be with you today to talk about the newly adopted Common Core standards and what educators should know about them. This is basically an introductory session to the Common Core standards. It is about understanding what the content of the standards is, what the language is, and what the layout of the new standards are, so that you can compare this particular layout and language to the current New Jersey Common Core standards. The Core, as it is commonly referred to, is a group of state-led and developed Common Core standards for kindergarten through grade 12 in English language arts and in mathematics. The design of these standards is to be fewer, clearer, and higher. So there are not so many standards. There are not CPIs in these standards. Their statements and their anchor statements are very clearly written, and they all address college and career training so that they are written at a higher level of difficulty. These standards are aligned with the college and career training and requirements. They're internationally benchmarked so that America can compete on an international screen. They are, however, standards and just the beginning of the work that needs to be done. Very clearly, there are a set of new expectations. This year, 2010-2011, is a time for planning, a time to become familiar with the standards and to attempt to develop curriculum and other pieces such as assessments that would be directly connected to the standards. The year 2014-15 is the year that common assessments will become operational. That does give us some time to both develop the new assessments, to come to learn them, and to have some experience with them. Between now and then, there will need to be transitions in these assessment systems. We don't know specifically yet what these transitions will look like or what they will contain. Presently, we are held to NCLB requirements. When that will begin to transition into the new requirements for the Common Core standards, we will learn about as those determinations unfold. As we phase in the standards, we first look at curriculum development and alignment and the coordinated professional development and learning that must be in place for all who are responsible for these standards. In order to do that, we think that educators need to know 7 basic areas of information. The first is that the Common Core initiative is a launch. It's a launch of America's quest to be #1 in education again. As you are most familiar, we have slipped considerably in our ranking internationally. And in order to address that, the ideas of a Common Core set of standards so that educators are all on the same page, whether they live in California or Indiana or Massachusetts or New Jersey. That is the basic purpose of the standards. They provide a shared vision of what students, teachers, and administrators should know and be able to do and to deliver in their schools. There's great consistency of high expectations for all, and you clearly will see that in the writing of the standards when we move to that particular level. There is flexibility, however, as states may add up to 15% more information if they choose to do so. So this is not designed to be limited by any means, but rather to be as high-end as a state chooses them to be. The language and the layout of the standards is new and is different. Let's start with English language arts and the core content areas. The English language arts standards address reading as a separate set of standards, writing as a separate set of standards, speaking and listening together. The conventions of language are a set of standards, and then there are standards for reading and writing in the content areas, most specifically in history, social studies, science, and the technical subjects. The coordinated handouts or downloadable samples for these 2 slides can be found on our website at www.njascd.org. NJASCD.org. The second set of standards is, of course, in mathematics, and mathematics has addressed learning math and arithmetic in new and different ways. There is focus and coherence in each standard at each grade level. There are only a few key topics at each grade level, 4 by number, so each grade level has 4 new standards. There are progressions across the grade level so that some content may have been moved to different grade levels than we now know it to be located in. And you'll need to do that in aligning curriculum to determine where these differences are, where the gaps are, what has been eliminated, and what has been added. In math, because it's math, there is a domain and a code for each area of standards. And there are also standards for content, which I've just described, but there are also standards for practice. And the standards for practice address the habits that we want students to become familiar with and continually use when they are mathematically engaged. There are samples that are downloadable as well. And the samples that I have provided, I'm going to explain now, but they will be most helpful to you if you are able to access them on our website and then actually go through what I'm going to talk about with a colleague or with another teacher or with a friend. In English language arts, the standards K-12 are in standard number 6, point of view. There is a set of anchor standards for each content area. Those anchor standards number 10 standards. So there are really 10 standards in reading, 10 standards in writing, 10 standards in speaking and listening, and so forth. The standard number 6 point of view excerpts kindergarten through 12th grade so that you can actually see what point of view is defined as at kindergarten, at 3rd grade, at 5th grade, at high school, whatever. You will also note in these new standards that grades 9 and 10 are combined in one set of standards, and grades 11 and 12 are a second set of standards. In writing K-12, I chose standard number 8, which is a 21st century standard, and I think would be most important to address early on in your curriculum realignment. Standard number 8 in writing addresses information from print and digital sources, and it expects students, once given a problem, to search the web digitally and libraries, both in print and digitally, excerpt appropriate information, create a piece of writing that answers the question or addresses the problem without plagiarizing. This is clearly a 21st century skill since it will all be done online using digital resources. In mathematics, the samples that I provided for you are in operations and algebraic thinking. And if you look at the statement on this slide, you see OA, which is the code or the domain, and you see K5. So it will have a grade level and the domain, and then it will follow with the language of that standard. The number system is provided for middle school grades in grades 6 through 8, and the conceptual categories at high school. You will notice in mathematics they provide themes for you rather than courses. So one theme, of course, is algebra, another will be geometry. And as you look at these themes, schools have the opportunity to create the courses that address those themes. I also provide a 3-question activity sheet in both mathematics and language arts. So when you take those sample sheets that I've just described, in math you would answer these 3 questions. The first is, how do the content standards and the standards for practice work together? Discuss the progression for grades K to 5 or grades 6 to 8 in terms of a sequence for a grade, development of skills, and expectations for learning at the end of that progression. That's a really important question because what's taught and presented in grades 6 through 8 as a progression is not taught as a first set of skills again. So it's real important that students really learn what's expected of them at that grade level. The third question is discuss the differences in math standards for high school for the Common Core and the present course offerings in your district and school. That realignment will also need to occur because they are stated differently in the Common Core. In language arts, with a colleague or a partner, you're going to want to answer the following 3 questions. Discuss the difference between the anchor standard and the standards by grade. When you are writing curriculum, you can use the anchor standard as is for language. It lends itself to being rephrased as an essential question beautifully. Then there are standards by grade that specifically develop that anchor standard at 1st grade, at 3rd grade, at 8th grade, whatever. The second question, discuss the differences in the English language arts standards of the Common Core and the standards presently used in your school and district. And the third question, what changes are likely or possible to align the 2 sets of standards? And that, ladies and gentlemen, happens to be the heart of the work that you will be doing in the very near future. There are a number of linkages that stem from the Common Core, and I have labeled them the dimensions of implementation, or the factors, the dimensions of implementing the standards. They very clearly put the Common Core at the center, and those linkages address curriculum, assessment, professional development. They assess ongoing learning and very clearly leadership. The new Common Core standards will become the lens through which curriculum is designed, instruction will be delivered, and learning will be assessed and measured from here on. There are some limitations to the new Common Core standards, and those limitations come in the form of what they do not tell us or what they do not define. The limitations are listed on this particular slide as bulleted items. The new Common Core do not tell us how teachers should teach. That always will be a very personal and professional method. They do not tell us all that can or should be taught. Always there will be connected pieces that you as professionals will want to add. They do not tell us the nature of the advanced learning beyond the core. That constitutes the 15% that districts and states are invited to add to the Common Core standards as they presently exist. They do not give us the interventions that are needed for students below grade level. They don't really provide for the differentiation that you as teachers and staff will want to plan for in your curriculum and lessons. They also don't provide the full range of support for English language learners and students with special needs. Once again, that's part of the differentiation, part of the support that schools and districts always build in to teaching and learning situations. The next item that I would like to talk about is learning. Learning in the largest concept. There's great need for learning on the part of students, and that, of course, is why we're here. But very clearly there is a need for continuous professional development for staff. As we upgrade standards, as we upgrade schooling in America, then we also need to upgrade the professional learning of those responsible for that, both in leadership and administrative positions, as well as teachers. The learning comes with the appropriateness of sharing curriculum, effective instructional strategies, and assessment processes that are all necessary for teachers and leaders to accomplish these goals. Remember, there are many 21st century skills and goals throughout the new Common Core. Those are all made up of new learning for present staff. The last part of Common Core addresses leadership. Leadership is so key to everything that will make the Common Core implementation successful. There is a great need for the capacity to lead at every level: teacher leaders, administrative leaders, district leaders, national leaders. The wisdom in building capacity at every level to stay ahead of the curve is essential. Please understand that. To know what works in your school and district and to design learning opportunities accordingly is part of the capacity to lead, to know what you are responsible for, and to be able to access the best resources to address those needs will be key to success. There is no one right way to use these standards. Standards are just that. They are the way to begin this new work. They are the foundation. So I chose to close this particular session with a quote from Howard Gardner. He says, "Toward a more informed future, we live in a time of vast changes that include accelerating globalization, mounting quantities of information, the dominating influence of science and technology, and the clash of civilizations." Very evident today. Those changes call for new ways of learning and thinking in school, in business, and in the professions. It is the Common Core that attempts to set that foundation. So I'd like to wish you very, very best luck in terms of delivering the Common Core standards with a high degree of success in all of your situations. Thank you for joining me today.